What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Lock and Cash podcast. It's Friday, February 28th. It's the final day of February before we get into March. And once March starts, the madness begins. So it's one of my favorite times of the year. Haven't been on here in a while, so I wanted to come on and make sure I don't forget about you guys. Make a quick pod for Saturday's college basketball games. And then from this week forward, we're going to have some more videos up on here. So I'm going to talk about, we're going to probably have a video for some futures. We'll discuss the conference tournaments once the brackets are set. For sure, we'll do that. And then we'll obviously into the tournament. We'll have a weekly podcast talking about the games and the spots that I like all the way through to the championship game. So make sure you guys subscribe down below if you haven't already so you don't miss any of the stuff coming up. In this video today, I'm going to talk about some of the Saturday games that I'm looking to get down on and what sides I like. Obviously, lines have not been posted yet, but we can talk about pricing to see so that you guys know when these lines come out. What am I looking at? What are the actionable numbers that I need for me to actually place a bet and all that stuff. So we'll get to that in this video. There's a couple of games that I wanted to highlight and talk about for you guys. And as always, the pod is brought to you by our friends at Underdog. So they're also ramping up for March Madness as well. They've got extra games, new promos, all the cool stuff that you guys love. So make sure you check them out. There's a link down in the description. We also post NBA picks every day for our Underdog entries, or if you just want to straight bet them as well. But that's over on our Instagram and TikTok at Lock and Cash Fantasy. So if you follow us over there, and if you're looking for daily NBA player props, we do that over there. And our code for Underdog is LCS. So make sure you use the code when you sign up because they will give you 1,000 bonus credits and they'll give you a free pick win to get you started. So check out Underdog for the month of March. All right, I wanted to start off with this game between Arizona and Iowa State. This is a Big 12 matchup. This is going to be a great game. And to me, the spot here is pretty clear. It just all depends on the price, like I said. But I want to look to Iowa State, who has now lost 2 games in a row, right? They lose that game to Houston on the road. We were on Houston in that game. I posted on here, I believe, on YouTube Shorts. So make sure you guys, if you don't see any long form stuff from me, check Shorts. I'll post, I gave a pick yesterday on Shorts on the Warriors that cashed. Houston also cashed. So check us out over there as well. But losing that game to Houston was totally within reason. I mean, that's a great team. Coming in, and you were on the road. You beat them in the conference championship game last year as a big dog. So it's like a revenge spot mixed in with a really good team at home. So totally understandable. But then Iowa State going on the road to Oklahoma State, losing that game is unacceptable, right? -9.5, I believe they were, as a massive road favorite. And losing the game in the way that they did was just insane. So this is going to be a massive, you're 11-6 now in conference play. You're coming back home to play Arizona. Is a massive get up spot for Iowa State. On top of this, you have the revenge angle, the mini revenge angle. They lost to Arizona earlier in the year. But don't forget, it was not that they lost. It's the way it happened, right? Iowa State should have won that game. They're up by 3. That was the game where Caleb Love hits the half-court buzzer beater to send the game into overtime at home. The crowd goes nuts. That gave Arizona all the momentum. So if you just look at the final score of 86-75, you're thinking, wow, Arizona with a nice, clean, easy win. But don't forget the game, they were down by 3. Hit a half-court buzzer beater. Game goes to overtime. The momentum helps them win out in overtime. So just keep that in mind. It was not your typical result. And that game, by the way, it's just, I think, a little bit indicative of what we've seen from Arizona this entire season, right? Not that they're a bad team by any stretch, don't get me wrong, but they've had very fortunate endings to some of these games, and you're starting to see the regression kick in now, right? Like the loss against BYU, where it was very fluky at the end of that game. That's one of those games that I look at where I see a team that, like Arizona, that's all right, there's a little bit of regression there. Are they due for any more? They lose to Houston. That's another really good defense that they played close to the end of the game. What I see in Arizona is like a team that's really good when they're playing from ahead. They have the recipe for that. They don't turn the ball over much. They're a great offensive rebounding team. They shoot free throws really well. So a great team when they're ahead. They got the recipe down for that. But in these tight, really tight defensive grinds, or these games that can be low scoring, come down to a few possessions, I don't love them at the end of these games. I don't love the decision-making. I don't love the shots that they take. I don't love the way Caleb Love plays around the perimeter so much when the game is on the line. I think that stuff can come back to burn you very, very quickly, especially this time of year, especially against a desperate opponent who's now lost 2 games in a row. Can't go on a 3-game skid if you're Iowa State. Now, in terms of the price here, KenPom, Sager, and Torvik, you can look at all these sources. We're looking at 4, maybe a little bit less. For me, if I can get less than 4, I'm on Iowa State. If I can get 3, 3.5, that's what I'm hoping for. But something tells me this might open like around 3, 3.5, and immediately go up. I think you might be looking at a 5 here, but we'll see. But anything better than 4.5 for me would be a play on Iowa State in this game. I think the spot heavily favors them. And Arizona, just look at their last game, right, against Utah. They blow them out at home, right? These are the teams that they take care of, these easy blowout wins. Now they have to hit the road against a really, really good defense. These are the types of games that Arizona has lost this season more often than not. I believe they're 1-4 against, or 1-3 against top 10 defenses. So this is exactly the type of game where I want to fade Arizona in this spot. So I'll be looking to take Iowa State this weekend as my first situational spot. Let's get to number 2. I like this one even more. So we're going to look at Georgia versus Texas. Right now, let's see, what do we have here for the projections here? I think it was 3. Yeah, right now we're looking at Texas -3, potentially at home in this game. I think that if you get a -3, it's going to go up quick. So you're going to have to be ready for this one. I love Texas. I think this is a great spot for Texas. Let's just talk about what Texas has done recently, why I like the spot so much. They've lost 5 out of their last 6 games. You're like, all right, why? How's that good? Well, that's good because sometimes you can find good teams that are struggling, and then you can try to dissect the team and try to figure out what's going on. Is there something I can potentially buy low on? Is there just fluky results? Have they faced stiff competition? And for them, it's kind of been a mix of everything, right? I mean, they lost to Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Alabama. They win at home against Kentucky. Then they lose to South Carolina. That's a bad one. And then they lose to Arkansas again. So there's, you have Arkansas in there twice, who's red hot right now. Alabama, obviously very, very good. You probably weren't going to win that game. Vandy has played really well. I mean, Vandy just won outright at Texas A&M. So that loss to Vandy, especially on the road, doesn't look so bad right now. The one loss in there that's like, whoa, what the hell, is the South Carolina loss. But South Carolina in that game, guys, I was on them last weekend. South Carolina, they were 0-13 in conference play going into that game. As a small home dog, you weren't going to find a more desperate team on the board last Saturday than South Carolina. I made a video about it, a short form video. So that win was kind of like, all right, it's an ugly loss for Texas, but it was on the other side was a team that was so due. I mean, 0-13 with a top 50 defense. How's that possible? They were so due for a win. So when I look at this, I kind of just think, this is a great Texas spot. Okay, right off the bat. Now, I want to go to the other side. Let's look at Georgia. Georgia, prior to what just happened in their last game, which was a victory, they had lost 5 out of their last 6 games, including 4 games in a row. Mississippi State, A&M, Missouri, and Auburn. Very, very tough schedule. We get it. Come home against Florida as a 7-point dog, whatever it was, win the game outright. They were up by 24 in that game. They give the lead all the way back. They're down with a minute left by 1 point, end up squeezing the game out. But man, that dramatic roller coaster of emotions, the highs, the lows, the high once again. Ooh, you need a massive breather after a win like that. When you beat a team like Florida, who's arguably a top 3 team in the country, that's an enormous win for Georgia at home, massive for the program. Now you hit the road. What's the problem with this? An emotional letdown spot on the road where you're already bad. Georgia has 1 road win all season long. And it came on November 15th against Georgia Tech. They haven't won on the road in 3 months. So what are they going to do here going to Texas? Texas needs this game so bad. They're favored. And they're probably not going to make it into the NCAA tournament, but they got to win this game to keep any hope alive. And this is probably going to be the final. They'll probably be favored small at Oklahoma at home to end the season, but your next game on the road, Texas, you're going to be a dog at Mississippi State. So you're going to be favored in this game against Georgia. You got to win this game. Anything less than 3 here, -2, 2.5, 3. I might even go higher on the price, 3.5, 4. I just think it's a great spot for Texas. Georgia's offense too on the road has been so bad. I mean, take a look at some of these road games. At A&M, they score 69 points, 69 against Auburn, 69 against Alabama. That's like the sweet spot. 59 points, 65 points, 56 points against 10. I mean, they just 51 points against Ole Miss. They just can't score on the road. It's brutal on the road. So Georgia has been good to us this season as a home dog. Whenever I think we cashed against them in that Auburn game, and I haven't lost a bet in Texas games so far this season. So I hit on them against Kentucky. When they won, I faded them against South Carolina. I stayed off the Arkansas game. So I've been doing pretty well in these Texas games. So I want to keep that going. I love Texas laying a small number against Georgia tomorrow. So those are really the two biggest spots that I'm looking at, but there are other games as well that I think are worth a look. You know, you've got obviously the big game is Alabama versus Tennessee. The thing about this game that, you know, and Ken Palm is projecting a spread of Tennessee -5 in this game, which I could see makes a little bit of sense. I think it's a little too high. I think I would have this more around 3. If you're they're gonna throw out a 5 here on Bama, I would grab it. Um, the thing about this game, though, what makes me a little bit hesitant about diving in or saying there's a clear side is the projections, right? So first of all, if you just look at the matchup, right, it's going to be the first time these teams have played each other. I don't love jumping on those games, like the previous two games I just talked about. I love jumping on a game where the team has, unless it's an amazing situational spot like the Texas spot. Aside from that, I want to find teams that played each other once before because then I have something to reference. Obviously, here you have several common opponents, which is good. But this game just projects to me from everything I'm looking at the numbers. It's like it's either going to be a blowout either way, or it's going to be a super tight game. It's just I don't know. It to me seems like a very high variance spot. Number one offense, or what is Bama? 2 or 3, whatever. A top 2 offense versus a top 2 defense on the other side with Tennessee. I personally just think if you're going to give me 2 baskets here, right, 4 or more with Bama, which is what we're projecting. Like I said, the line's not out yet. I'm going to be on. I would have to lean strongly to Alabama getting anything more than 2 baskets in this game. And you've seen, you know, Tennessee, both teams come in hot right now. You know, Tennessee's won 3 in a row, but none of them, you know, on the road at LSU, a 6-point win for Tennessee. They took care of A&M for sure, but that game went right down to the wire. Prior to that, the game against Vanderbilt at home, they were down huge in the first half, rallied all the way back to just win by 5. Before that, lost to Kentucky lost to Kentucky. So you have, you know, these kind of tricky. It's just tough for me to make a call on this game, even though I know it's the game of the week. I would have to lean Alabama if this line opens at 4 or higher. Anything higher than 4, I would lean to the Crimson Tide in this game. I think they have enough firepower to keep themselves in this one. Another one that we can look at that I think could be, let's talk about a couple of upsets that I think you could see. The first one, you have to look at, it's not pretty, but you got to look at fading these red hot teams. One of those is Arkansas right now, red hot. Winner, you know, beat Missouri in that huge game at home, come back, beat Texas in overtime, and firmly in now, I think you could say firmly in the tournament. And now they head to take on lowly South Carolina. So South Carolina 1-14 in conference play. That one win came against Texas, turned around, got obliterated by Missouri, a bloodbath on the road. Now they head back home. It's going to be a short number once again, very similar to the way it was against Texas. It's going to be like, you know, Arkansas -3 or something like that, or 2.5. And they're going to be a small home dog. And it just feels like one of those spots where it could be finally the potential letdown for Arkansas, who's been just, man, they've been playing some very good basketball, and they are a very good defense. But that offense has really been the story, and I'm not sure that it can continue. Right, so those back-to-back wins, even the win that even in their 2 losses prior to the 2 wins, you know, at A&M they lose by 8, but they cover. But they push. We had +8. If you got 8.5, they covered. They lose at Auburn by 7, but they cover the spread. You know, then go home, drop 92 on Missouri, drop 86 on Texas. Now they hit the road. So this team's been playing well now for quite a while, basically the entire month of February. You know, they've been playing very good basketball. So in February alone, Arkansas beat Kentucky, they beat Texas, LSU, Missouri, and then Texas again. Their only losses were to Bama, A&M, and Auburn. Three top 20 teams in the country. So now you go to South Carolina. It just feels like such a sleepy spot. You've got Vandy and Mississippi State on deck to end your season. I would watch out here for South Carolina in this game as a potential upset. Another one that I'm looking at is Maryland versus Penn State. Now, this one's interesting because Maryland comes off of the brutal loss to Michigan State that they just had, right? Did they deserve to win that game, Maryland? No. Michigan State led for most of it. But they come back, they tie the game. They take a horrific shot, but at the end of that game was a horrible decision to take that shot. But they take the shot, they leave too much time on the clock, and they get burned with the half-court buzzer beater. All right. Michigan State wins the game outright as I think a 4.5 point dog. Now everyone's just going to assume this happens all the time. You just assume the team's going to bounce back. But losses like that can often have a lasting impact. All right. And it's a quick turnaround. It's not that long of a break in between games. And you're going to Penn State. Yeah, Penn State, they're not that great. But since they've gotten the center back, Niederhauser, the 7-footer, they've been much better offensively. They win a game outright where we were on them. That was our biggest play last weekend, was our 2-unit play on Penn State +3. They win that game outright. Then roughly the same spread at Indiana. No, I think they were getting 6 or 6.5 at Indiana. Lead the game late in the second half, in control. Indiana starts getting hot from 3. They covered the game. They lose by 5, but they cover. Man, now they go back home. They're going to be catching a sizable number here, probably 5 or 6 points with Penn State as a home dog. I think that's really appealing with the way they're playing offensively, with the way Maryland has looked on the road this season. They have not been a good road team. I think you could look at Penn State as potentially a sizable upset. So I would look at the Nittany Lions in that game as well. Last one I'll mention here, not one of my favorite spots because I think the number is going to be a little bit inflated, but you've got Texas A&M taking on Florida. All right. And Florida does this. If you look at Florida's entire season, their entire schedule, whenever they lose a game, right? They lose to Kentucky back on January 4th. The next game, 3 days later, they beat Tennessee by 30. They lose by 1 point to Missouri at home as a big favorite. The following game, 3 days later, they win by 24 against Texas. When they lost to Tennessee, they beat Vanderbilt by 11 points. Now they lost to Georgia. It's their 4th loss of the season. The same reasons that I want to go ahead and fade Georgia after pulling off that massive upset against Florida are the same reasons I now want to go back Florida out of a game. Whenever I see a game like that, where it's like a double-digit, or not double-digit, but a big favorite that got the upset gets pulled off by a team you weren't expecting it to happen. Now I want to look at going zigzag on both of those teams. I want to fade the winner and I want to back the loser. Florida heads home. Texas A&M comes in. Okay, this is going to be a big spread. I think it's going to be 9 or 10 points probably. Anything less than 10, though, I think is a go. A&M has now lost 3 games in a row. It's not the fact that they've lost 3 games in a row. It's how they've looked losing them. 54 points against Mississippi State, 69 points against Tennessee, and then they put up a valiant effort against Vandy with 84 points, but Vandy led most of that game, controlled the game for the majority of it. I mean, the offense is a problem. We knew the offense was going to be a problem for A&M. We talked about it on previous shows, how they 30% from 3, 48% from 2. I mean, they're shooting 40% from 2 in their last 3 games in these losses. 40% from 2-point range. They've got a top 10 defense, but they were winning games in spite of their offense before. If we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but now that offense has fully come back to burn them. And now you got Florida, who's a top 5 on both sides, offense and defense. Man, this is a rough spot for Texas A&M. I think there's some lasting issues there on the offensive side of the ball for them. And this is just a classic Florida. We've seen this, like I said, we've seen this 3 times already this year. Florida loses a game. They come back with a massive, massive performance in the following game. I expect the same thing. I think they're going to win by double digits. So if it's anything less than 10 here, if you get a 9, 9.5, 8, I would lean to the Gators at home in that game. So those were some leans. So like I said, let's do a quick recap. The small leans: South Carolina versus Arkansas, don't love it. Penn State catching points at home against Maryland, like that a little bit more. Florida laying probably a sizable number against A&M, like that a little bit. The plays that I love, though: Iowa State, anything less than 4, I'm going to be firing on the Cyclones at home against Arizona. And finally, Texas, probably my favorite one on the weekend, is Texas laying a small number against Georgia. Whatever that spread comes out to, I'll be on the Longhorns. So, guys, that's it for this week in college hoops. Like I said, tomorrow's March 1st, so we're going to get conference tournament brackets really soon. I'll do a video as soon as those come out. We'll go through each one here. Probably not every conference, but we'll go through all the big ones. And then we'll have much more tournament content coming up, because I have tons and tons, like over a dozen betting systems that I want to talk to you guys about for the tournament. So we're going to find ways that we can find profitable situations, profitable angles. There's a lot of key ones that are based around statistics, which I'm excited to talk about, like free throw shooting, rebounding. There's a lot of base systems that just simply, like, they break things down and make it very simple for you guys to win in March. So we'll have stuff coming up on that. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Let's get it.